There's something inherently memorable about the things that scare us, especially from when we're young and can't always comprehend, rationalize, or understand the things we're seeing. Things that scare you stay with you, and in some cases can even haunt you into adulthood. Everyone has movies and shows that scared them from when they were young, and in this video I'm going to discuss the media that gave me more nightmares and wet blankets than I'd care to admit. I'll be ascending in order of scariness, with the first movie or show being the least scary and ending with the most scary thing young little Alex IHE has ever seen in his whole life. Please note that the film or show was not necessarily even a horror movie or intended to be scary, and most of them do boil down into a single moment or concept that really mess with my young little head. So with that in mind,
let us begin.
When I was a kid, I absolutely loved Small Soldiers, but there was always just something about it that made me feel a little bit uneasy. Upon revisiting, it's really not a very good movie. In fact, it's actually quite inappropriate in a lot of ways, which I guess is why it was rated a 12 here. Wait, what? It was a 12? How the hell did this ever get made? The director of Gremlins, Joe Dante, was at the helm of this creepy project about action figures who were actually extremely artificially intelligent toys that were created by a toy company by accident, sort of, who used said intelligence to craft violent weapons capable of drawing blood.
There will be no mercy. Time to flash the corn.
Half of the terrifying toys were horrible mutants that only cared about escaping their cruel world they were thrust into, and the other half were horrifying soldiers who were hell-bent on murdering the mutants who in the movie were known as the Gargonites.
Our mission: destroy the Gorgonite enemy, defeat him.
Yeah, apart from the idea of action figures coming to life already being quite a scary concept in and of itself, there was one scene in particular that really did make me feel quite anxious. There was something inherently quite disturbing about jacked up soldier toys insinuating how much they'd love to fuck a Barbie doll.
Take a look, sir. Bombshells, sir.
Fully posable. Dolly. Sweet stuff. Hubba, hubba. R&R, sir?
But the turn this whole Barbie section takes is quite unexpected. One of the small soldier characters was killed in a scene earlier, and the survivors were carrying his corpse around in a tiny little body bag for toys. So then the Tommy Lee Jones villain character tears the head off of his comrade's dead body, pulls the plastic skin right off of his head, revealing his hideous skull-like features underneath, and literally breaks his fucking skull in half to remove the equivalent of its brain. And as if that wasn't enough, they use the brain chip from their dead comrade to power a production facility, a Frankenstein production facility, that brings all of the Barbie dolls, which are now randomly defaced and mutants, to life.
It's alive! It's alive!
Hi there!
For some reason, every doll is naked and has various sharp objects strapped to them. I don't know why it was necessary for them to be completely mutated and laugh like creepy maniacs, but to be honest, I don't think this film was very interested in being safe for children.
Don't hate me because I'm beautiful.
While neither being a true satire horror that parodies the friendly nature of something like Toy Story, Small Soldiers just wound up being a tonally confusing mess that had no idea if it wanted to be a funny kids movie or a creepy comedy horror in a similar vein to Gremlins, and just wound up being disturbing for an audience who were probably never supposed to actually see this. As a 6-year-old, there is nothing worse than being fearful of your own toys. Thanks very much, Small Soldiers. Appreciate it. Wallace and Gromit is a wonderful stop-motion animated series of short films that you're doing yourself a disservice if you've never seen. While Wallace and Gromit normally reserves itself to absurdist sight gags and harmless antics, there was one scene in particular that messed with me when I was quite a young child. In the Wallace and Gromit adventure A Close Shave, there is a dog character who you believe, for the majority of the running time, is simply just a dog. But towards the last sequence, this dog character gets sucked into a scary pipe by Shaun the Sheep, and it's revealed that this dog was never a dog after all this time, and was actually a scary skeletal robot.
Daddy created him for good, but He's turned out evil.
The pacing of this scene is beautifully crafted, exactly like a horror movie, which as an adult is very entertaining, but the young version of me was very much distressed by this and found the image of an evil robot dog to be quite unsettling. Naturally. Luckily, good old Gromit saves Sean from being mangled by the mechanical mutt, otherwise this scene really would have upset me. The sequence quickly devolves back into the usual Wallace and Gromit comedy, but not without ending with the dog being smashed into a meat mincer so his eyes pop out, then having his robot guts distributed into cans with his own face on. Obviously, not a single thing about this is scary now as an adult, and it's actually nothing but charming and funny, but you're not exactly rational when you're a developing child, are you? Cans of food were a bit disturbing for a while. Was it appropriate that I was watching Tremels as a young child? In my opinion, yes, because I loved it. No good comes from being overprotective from fiction as a parent. It's a movie about a giant slug that lives in the desert that finds you through vibrations in the floor as you walk around. Sure, there's a little violence here and there, but as long as your kid isn't a fucking moron and knows that it isn't real life and it's all effects and camera trickery, I see no harm in it. Although the thought of a creature that could swallow you up while you're just doing a casual activity such as walking down the road was quite scary to me when I was younger. It somehow never escaped my mind, no matter how rational I tried to be, when I'd be walking to school and my imagination got the better of me. And sometimes I'd even go as far as to sprint upstairs when the thought was truly stuck in my head, because I knew the graboid monster, which is the name of the giant slug, couldn't get me if I was up high and off the ground. Now, I have a lot of affinity for Tremors. It's actually a very good movie, if you can get past the extremely cheesy poster and how stupid the premise sounds. I definitely recommend this one as an adult if you like monster movies.
Fuck you!
So far we're still on movies that I was obsessed with despite having aspects that scared me, and both The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth continue this trend because they are wonderful for freaking the fuck out of children.
Are you afraid of me? Think I'm going to eat you?
There is something just so much more scary about a lifelike moving puppet than a computer-generated ghost or something. When it came to choosing which one I wanted to watch, I'd always choose Labyrinth because I found it less scary, because of all the singing and generally lighter tone. But if I really wanted to challenge myself, I would put on The Dark Crystal. The Dark Crystal was actually so scary and inaccessible for children in its earlier cuts that the film actually had to be reworked to appear more friendly to be accessible for a younger audience. A narrator was added, and the ghastly bird-like characters called the Skeksis, I don't know, had voices added to not be quite as frightening. But I'm afraid you just simply cannot make something like this not be the most fucking spine-chilling thing you've ever seen. To tell the truth, I still do find elements of The Dark Crystal to be nightmarish and unsettling, but I think that's because I feel so immersed into the world whenever I watch it. It actually feels like you're watching a completely different universe. So I found it to be completely fascinating, despite how strange and unconventional it was. Even creatures which are supposed to be friendly and lovable are fucking ghoulish. There was a particular Skeksis, who would make this disturbing moaning noise that would really get under my skin and make me feel fucking ill. It was like a type thing. Jesus.
It's time to make my move.
Basically, every scene in the movie has something completely unnerving. From the draining of one's very life essence to being captured by huge crab creatures. Even describing it to you right now is making me shiver. It's hard to put the undeniable magic of this movie into words. It's definitely a unique experience, and I honestly can't figure out if I even like it or not to this very day. As far as the Labyrinth goes though, there's only one single scene that I found to be nearly unwatchable. And that's this fucking musical number with these pink things that pull themselves apart and take their eyes out and jump around on a really bad green screen. There is such a perfect level of unbridled horror in this scene that it still makes me want to throw up even if I hear the music without seeing it.
I know what we can do. Take off her head. Yeah, let's take off. Fuck.
I have no idea if this sequence is supposed to be as freaky as it is. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that it wasn't and they just fucked up horribly. Upon reflection, There's almost nothing scary about Goosebumps. For the most part, the show is so poorly acted and the effects are so laughable that in retrospect I find it hard to believe that it freaked me out in the way it did.
They make me scared.
Everyone who used to watch Goosebumps had that one episode. You know, the one that played on your specific fears and kept you up at night. For me, this was 2 episodes. The first one was called The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. I don't really remember much about the episode, if I'm honest. But where I grew up had a lot of crop fields and farmers' land, so naturally the idea of anything skulking around them in the dark is just frightening to a young, impressionable child. Scarecrows still creep me out to this very day, and can you blame me? I mean, look at them, they're just creepy. The other episode was either The Werewolf of Fever Swamp or Werewolf Skin. Something about a werewolf, I don't know. Again, I really don't remember much because I was too young, and at the time I thought it was so scary I didn't finish it, I just turned it off. And I even rewatched both these episodes, but nothing is triggering any memories, so I have no clue which one it was. The only thing I have a memory of is something to do with a werewolf and it being Goosebumps. I just thought werewolves were scary, okay? I still find Alien scary and unsettling to this day. When I first watched Alien when I was about 9 or 10 years old, I was stuck in this perfect mix of being too scared to move, but also being so fascinated by the creature in the story that I was transfixed by every single viewing. The perverse nature of a creature attaching itself to your face and laying an egg in the back of your throat, which is pushed down by food or drink, which proceeds to burst out of your chest, is possibly the greatest and most horrible monster design of all time. Aliens wasn't quite as scary to me because the xenomorphs are killed in droves, which helped combat and rationalize my fear from the first movie because it made them out to actually be killable. But even then, the scene where the woman is stuck in the wall and is begging to be killed really did stick with me because of how disturbing it was. Now though, as an adult, Alien is easily one of my favourite movies. From the incredible set design to how real the acting and pacing feels, I would highly recommend Alien to absolutely anyone who is a fan of film, science fiction, and horror. Aliens is good too. Not quite as good, but for action movie people, it's pretty great.
Eat this!
Now is when things get fucking creepy. Pingu was my favourite when I was a little 2-year-old boy. Well, up until something happened. In one episode, Pingu fell asleep one night and had a strange dream. It's relatively playful and innocent enough until... What the fuck is that? I can't stop looking at it. Somebody help me. Whoever thought this was a good idea must have been off their fucking tits, because this is one of the most genuine horrors I've ever had the displeasure of witnessing. When I asked my mum if I'd missed anything off this list of things that scared me when I was young that I might have forgotten, and she said, "There was an episode of Pingu that scared you," I thought to myself, what? Pingu's adorable. Pingu's innocent. No, Pingu's child-friendly. It couldn't be that bad. I must have just been a pussy. But holy shit, I do not blame 2-year-old me at all for being scared of that. Jesus Christ. I really do hope someone got fired over putting whatever the fuck that is in the show. I was obsessed with reading all of the Harry Potter books when I was a young little boy. So of course, when the movie adaptations started coming out, I was naturally excited. And for the most part, I enjoyed the movies as a kid. All apart from one scene in The Philosopher's Stone. Not the Sorcerer's Stone, the Philosopher's Stone. Get it right. As an innocent 7-year-old boy with a wild imagination, there was a scene that messed me up so bad that I actually had to have some minor child therapy to help make the nightmares go away. So what scene was it, do you say? What scene could have traumatized me so much? Well, if you remember, when Harry and his friends go into the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid and Voldemort is creepily sneaking around in the background, and what was that other part? What was it again? Oh yeah, where he's literally sucking the fucking blood out of a unicorn. I don't really know, I found it so intensely scary at the time. Rationalizing fiction isn't really important to you when you're 7 years old. But man, even to this day, seeing this scene sends shivers down my spine as it triggers the intense memories of unfiltered fear. And so finally, we're here. The thing that scared me the very most. The piece of media that scared me so much that I literally have not had the courage to revisit it until only a few months ago. And that movie is E.T. the Extraterrestrial. I know, the classic Spielberg movie that warmed the hearts of millions is the movie that scared me the very most. But why? What could be so scary? Well, you've probably noticed a recurring trend with my mind ultimately being the greatest enemy for me, as sometimes not seeing something or just being teased is far more effective than letting us see all the secrets right out. And E.T. applies this tactic early on in the beginning of the movie, keeping E.T. himself to nothing more than vague and shadowed shots of him in the wilderness, and having him reveal himself in a scene that's shot exactly like a horror movie. It's no wonder it fucked with me so much. Oh yeah, and there's also this. I never actually finished the movie because I thought it was so scary. So once I finally did build up the courage, I did actually rewatch the movie again, as I mentioned, as a 22-year-old man who's very strong and not afraid of anything. Yeah, I built up the courage to watch a heartwarming children's movie. And I actually did really enjoy it this time. The Spielberg charm is here in its full glory. And while some elements are relatively weak, such as plenty of the characters having very little development, but overall with the score and the emotion this film can muster, it really is quite special. Goes to show you can overcome your fears of children's movies. While the previously mentioned shows and movies are the pieces of media that scared me the very most, I feel like there are a couple of honourable mentions I need to acknowledge quickly. So as much as I loved Indiana Jones as a kid and still do to this very day, the ending of Raiders of the Lost Ark where the Nazis' faces melt and their heads explode made me feel weird. Kind of like the way Alien made me feel scared and disturbed, but at the same time I kind of liked it. It's hard to explain except for that visceral feeling you get in your gut when you know something is wrong to you. The Grudge used to freak the fuck out of me. Not really the movie per se, but more just the concept of a creepy Japanese lady showing up everywhere. I specifically remember a dream I had, a recurring dream, where I'd look into a grate that was in the corner of the room and she'd just be there staring at me. Fucking horrible. And finally I'd like to shout out the beginning of An American Werewolf in London. The atmosphere of the moors is an incredibly unnerving conceit, and I'll never forget the blood-curdling howl of the wolf. Pretty great stuff.
Did you hear that?
So that's the end of that one then. I'd like to thank YMS for tagging me in this series so I could make my own entry. I think it's a fun concept. And make sure you check out the Childhood Trauma playlist, which has a collection of a bunch of great YouTubers' own take on this same idea. It will be in the description and linked at the very end here if you want to check that out. So as always, thanks for watching. Let me know what movies and shows scared you as a kid in the comments below. My voice is dead. I'll see you next time. Bye!